It is opening day for Major League Baseball, but not until after this call ends. 3:05 is the first pitch, and I think that's the Yankees versus Brewers. But of course, everyone here in Washington, D.C. is waiting for the Nationals and the Phillies to play at 4 o'clock. So we're going to give you some updates on everything happening in the OmniAir world. I've asked our counsel, Mark Johnson, to advise us of some happenings at the FCC. I think they'll be of interest to the group. We're going to give a kind of a deep dive into what we have planned for PlugFest, and including the validation testing that we've just put into ballot, the 14-day ballot, the compendium of tests that we'll be doing for validating all V2X devices that'll be part of the day one deployment zone at World Congress, in addition to the other PlugFest testing we're offering. We'll have our working group updates, and then Meadow Cho with Tech will provide some insights onto still ongoing but nearly finished SCMS interoperability test event this week. Not all of the participants have provided results yet, but Tech has their results, and I think some really unique insights that will be useful. And we have Woody Kim on the call as well, and really looking forward to their presentation. And without further ado, let's move forward. So thank you all for being part of OmniAir. I think one of the unique things about the organization is we do have a 360-degree view of the marketplace, from automotive OEMs to device manufacturers, to test lab, test equipment providers, research institutions, etc. If you know of organizations that should be part of OmniAir but are not yet, please direct them to our website. Click the QR code for more information. And this month we are welcoming 2 new members. And I just don't know exactly who is on the call yet, but let's go ahead and welcome Auburn University, McCrary Institute, and Avery Dennison. Do we have anyone from Auburn University on the call? Is Jason Cuneo or any of his colleagues on the call? Well, I can say this, that the McCrary Institute is just one of the foremost think tanks in the cybersecurity world. They have offices at 101 Constitution. They're very engaged with DC policymakers, but they also do really great research there. Auburn's one of the storied research institutions in the US, and McCrary is really leading the way on cybersecurity. Their newsletter is probably the #1 daily newsletter that I get. I'm excited to have them as part of this, and they're doing some cybersecurity work in the V2X space. Avery Dennison is anyone from Avery Dennison on the call? So Avery Dennison is an RFID manufacturer. They make a number of different RFID products, but also in the tolling space. So manufacturer of 6C and other tolling transponders. So we're so excited to have continued growth in the tolling space as well. Next, please. So we had our board of directors meeting last week in Ashburn, Virginia. Integrity Security Services hosted our board meeting. It was a really great discussion about the strategic direction of OmniAir, but one of the things the board was able to work on is the approval of 5 test documents that are either updated or brand new documents. And those were voted for approval by the board. 2 of these are still in what we call a 30-day IP review, and that's the period in which any members can make necessary claims. And so once that period ends, those 2 documents will be placed along with the others as final versions in the members only section of our website. We do want to do a special presentation later about the universal case announcement message, the UCAM. That is something that we're going to be opening up a little bit more broadly than just to the membership. But I think it's really going to assist in our efforts to develop testing and certification for V2X applications. And Randy will talk about these in a little bit more detail during the working group updates. Next, please. So we are excited to have an OmniAir webinar coming up next week. It is all about India. I wanted to label this a passage to India, but then Rakenda told me not to. It is going to be a fantastic whirlwind trip through all of the standards and research and deployment activities that are happening in CV2X. I've been watching from the sidelines as ITS India and ITS India Forum and others are doing so much to advance C-V2X there. Some really exciting developments. I think it's a great market opportunity for all of the vendors in this space, and we're starting to see some of our first members from India as well, and we're welcoming many at the Plugfest this time. Jim Meisner and Punit Rathod will be talking on Wednesday, and that's Wednesday evening. And we'll of course have that taped and available on our YouTube channel afterwards. Next, please. So I've asked our counsel, Mark Johnson, to talk a little bit about an action that's happening today. The commission was, FCC was having an open meeting, their monthly open meeting, and there was a very important item on the docket that's relevant to the tolling industry, but I think broadly to the transportation industry, anyone relying on PNT. There was sort of a big notice of inquiry that's being voted on, and I'll ask Mark Johnson to kind of talk to us about what's happening there.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. I'll try to make this quick. The FCC, at its monthly open meeting today, this morning, in fact, it ended probably about half an hour ago, had on its agenda, as Jason referenced, a notice of inquiry. And that has, I would say, potentially could have direct effect on electronic tolling operations in the United States, which currently are the start at 902 to 928 megahertz. And they've been there for about 30 years or so. Anyways, so what the commission has done today is they've started a proceeding to solicit comments from the public, anybody, industry, private industry, commercial interests, academics, military, government, on alternative and complementary what's called PNT, or positioning, navigation, and timing technologies. And the most famous and well-known that we all love and use is GPS. And the idea here is, okay, GPS is great, but there needs to be backup. There needs to be other alternatives that may be usable, and also complementary technologies that may bolster or support GPS. And so the NOI released today, I'm going to listen to the meeting and see exactly what they said, but expect to be voted out favorably. And then within a couple of days, they'll release the formal document. An NOI is just what its name suggests, notice of inquiry. It is a kind of a first step for the commission to solicit input on proposals without having really stated any commitment to anything specifically. They're saying, okay, what's out there? Kind of get a lay of the land. What are the problems? What are the benefits? What's good and the bad, the ugly on these technologies that they're looking for? So that's all good, all makes sense. Where the ITS world comes in, and OmniAir and electronic tolling, that some of you may remember or have been involved in a petition for rulemaking that made the rounds last year, and that many of us, including OmniAir, submitted comments to the FCC from a petition rulemaking from a company called NextNav. And they've been around for a long time, and they have, at least they're proposing, a PNT, a terrestrial-based PNT solution that would operate nationwide in the 902 to 928 megahertz band. Now, their proposal, and I won't go into too much detail, but their proposal is to basically reconfigure, is to move everybody around in that band, including the incumbent electronic tolling operations. In effect, their proposal would take the amount of spectrum that's available now, that's being used by electronic tolling, and a few other incumbents, for about 14 megahertz, and actually consolidate it and reduce it down to 11 megahertz. There's also a concern that OmniAir and others raised about potential harmful interference from these proposed NextNav operations in adjacent channels that potentially could interfere into the tolling operation. So the FCC specifically in this NOI asked for comments on the NextNav technology and their proposal to reband the 900 megahertz band in this NOI. They did not take any position favorably or not on the petition. That remains pending. The comments from OmniAir and others were submitted in September. I'm not aware of any action at this point on the NextNav petition.
Well,
But I
Counselor,
did want to
let
note,
me,
and Jason and I wanted to note that this NOI has been released today and that it further puts into play the NextNav petition. So it may
yeah,
be another on this NOI, another opportunity for OmniAir and the larger OmniAir electronic tolling community to provide further comments on the NextNav petition as part of this NOI.
and,
So
and Counsel, let me ask one question, and then I see Suzanne Sloan has her hand up. But as I understand it, my read of the NOI is that they're not looking just for comments on the NextNav solution, but there are other solutions for terrestrial or alternative GPS that have been that have been proposed. So I think broadcasters have one. There's an eLORAN solution. There are several others out there that the commission is looking at, isn't that
yeah,
fair to say?
absolutely the case. Yeah, no, yeah, they're looking at space-based, some, different, other satellite-based and low orbit versus the existing GPS satellites. So as well as terrestrial-based, as you
Okay,
noted.
excellent.
So I just
So,
obviously they did have a whole separate section on NextNav, so I think it was, and given our interest, it's important
right,
to highlight that.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I can tell you that I've never seen the tolling industry, really fired up about anything quite like they are right with this. Ms. Sloan, you have a question?
Yeah, hopefully you guys don't mind. I'm going to introduce a little bit of nuance to this conversation. First of all, this NOI has a new docket. I will get you the link and I will put it in the chat room. But I want to make it clear to folks that there is a separate docket for the NextNav request and comments. So we're watching both dockets. Folks should watch both. This
Good point.
NOI from the FCC is very specifically focused on what the FCC can do from a spectrum perspective to encourage more CPNT solutions coming about. So while they are looking at CPN, comments on different forms of CPN, complementary PNT, note the fact that the DOT is actively testing different forms of these devices. That is not the FCC's job. The FCC's job is to figure out from a spectrum perspective what they can do. And so certainly the issue of interference is a really big issue that people need to think about and comment on and continue to ask FCC questions about. So like I said, there are two dockets to be paying attention to in this whole thing. The other nuance I wanted to introduce to this whole thing is that NextNav isn't looking to use the 902 to 928 spectrum specifically. They're interested in pulling a 5G solution in whereby they inject their solution into 5G in order to not just get the PNT X and Y axis, but the Z axis. So you're talking a vertical axis. I will note for you that there was a third item on the FCC agenda today asking about location accuracy associated with GPS or 911 calls in particular, noting the fact that they are trying to get the Z access provided as part of this. So the interesting note is that NextNav suggests that their solution can only be injected into 5G for use in this 900 megahertz band. And yet the FCC with the 911 requirements is looking for all sorts of telecommunication solutions to inject that Z-access capability. So I suspect NextNav is going to start looking at using different types of spectrum, not just this 900 megahertz band. And so the question that in our minds is, why is NextNav so deeply tied to just the 900 megahertz and not thinking about other types of spectrum. And why can't their solution work in different ways? Especially because NextNav's current product on the market is actually supporting public safety. So they understand this pretty well. So for us, that's yet a third docket we're going to be watching is that that location accuracy around 911 and the call for Z-access solutions for which NextNav has the opportunity to go play. So that's it. Thank you.
No, it's a lot of nuance. I think that's fantastic, and that's the type of information we need. I'll just conclude by saying OmniAir did file comments in the original petition calling for testing, especially for out-of-band emissions and spectrum sharing and that. And I know that there are a number of stakeholders in the tolling industry who are trying to work collaboratively with NextNav on a test plan. And so we look forward to hopefully bringing NextNav back in to present at a future OmniAir meeting to kind of get some of their perspective as well. But thank you again, Suzanne and Mark, and let's move on.
Sorry, Jason, quickly. Thank you, Suzanne. In the chat, I put the docket number for the NextNav petition for rulemaking proceeding. Suzanne is absolutely correct.
Excellent.
That's a separate proceeding. It's on a separate track. So you need to watch both of them and or comment in both of them. So
Fantastic, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, Brakinda, let's move forward. So we're going to talk a little bit about PlugFest and some of the exciting things that we have planned for May. We are back at SunTrax. SunTrax is a fantastic world-class connected and automated vehicle test facility. They even test UAVs and eVTOLs and other really cool things there. I'm testing motorcycles the last time I was visiting last week. But we are doing PlugFest there again, and we're doing this in two parts. We're cooperating with the U.S. Department of Transportation, which is doing its own interoperability testing on some very narrow issues, bringing in some of the early V2X deployer states and localities. And that testing is happening the second week. The first week is PlugFest testing, and then we have a workshop kind of built in the middle. Let's go and talk a little bit about what PlugFest is. PlugFest is a great opportunity to prepare for certification. It's important for device vendors that are considering entering the certification process. You know, whether you're a module, whether you're an RSU, OBU, or you have multiple devices, we encourage you to come to PlugFest. We find that vendors have one conception of how their device is doing, especially for conformance and interoperability, prior to entering PlugFest, and that they're disabused of some of those notions. Going through that week, they get valuable feedback, which will then mean when they do apply for certification testing, where they actually go for deployment, they're dramatically reducing the time that they're spending in test labs and on that certification testing. You're increasing your chance of success. For test tool providers, they are really practicing implementing and testing against OmniAir test cases. They're keeping the test tools updated. Authorized test labs have an opportunity to get more skills, interact with more vendors who will eventually become customers, figure out which test tool providers that they care to work with. And of course, for OmniAir, it really helps us to take a look at our test cases, make sure that they're actually working for everybody. We need to go back to standards development organizations. We need to go back to our own working groups to make adjustments. It does that. It's really beneficial to the entire community, and really what helps propel the certification process forward. So really excited about that. And for this year's event, we're not quite finished yet with registrations, but we do have a lot of vendors signed up already. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so we typically will have our test stations coming in first. So we'll have two laboratories, TTA and DECRA will be participating. We'll have Spirent for the first time in a couple of years coming in with a brand new test system that has the capability of doing testing against ETSI specs in Europe, China specs, as well as US specs. So we're excited about that. Keysight will be operating a great test station, and they will be doing a lot of the validation testing for World Congress, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We have several security certificate providers. Integral Blue will be participating as well, and Leidos will bring Cave in the Box and some other tools. And I'm told Iteris has a brand new OmniAir qualified test system that they'll be bringing, and of course, Waytees there. So lots that enables us to do a lot more testing than we had thought. And we're very excited about that. We're developing that final test plan as we speak. We've got a number of vendors signing up already to do device testing and a couple of new names. But we're very, very excited to have a number of vendors signing up. There still are tickets available for folks who are interested, but there will be a limit on space. So please encourage you to go ahead and sign up if you haven't done so already. Next, please. So you can see on the left a QR code for purchasing tickets. You can see this is our 15th Plugfest. It is exciting. It is in Auburndale, Florida, at Suntrax, and we are offering again that day one deployment zone validation testing. So if you've applied to have a device deployed as part of that day one deployment zone at World Congress, you'll need to do mandatory validation testing. We're offering that at Plugfest. The run of the week is that we'll have set up on Monday and then for half a day on Tuesday. And then after lunch on Tuesday, we begin testing. And so we'll offer bench and field testing and the validation testing for those 4 days of the week. We have a workshop planned for Monday, May 12th. We'll have an announcement hopefully next week on some speakers and panels. And I think it's going to be a really, really great event. 2 demonstrations lined up so far on VitaX-based tolling, which is a little bit different for us. But we're taking advantage of the Suntrax facilities to do that. We believe we'll have some 5G MEC use cases. We're talking to an MNO to take that on. And of course, on the balance of the following week is US DOT interoperability testing, and OmniAir staff will be participating in that and assisting as we can. One important thing is that for test equipment and for devices, you really need to handle your own shipping. We have recommendations on some of the shipping centers that are available here. Suntrax will not accept the deliveries. We've had questions about whether they can accept the delivery of a vehicle, whether they can accept very large test systems, and the answer with very limited exceptions is no. That you'll have to make that arrangement and work with Brian on our staff, and he'll be happy to help you with that. Next, please. So for those participating in the day one deployment district, there's sort of 2 applications you have to do. You have to do a screening that goes through ITS America and Georgia DOT. And so you just fill out that application, and then once you do that, you register. Once you do that vendor form, then you come to register for Plugfest. And we just want to make sure that you're not just registering for one and not the other, but that you get that full opportunity and consideration from the ITS America folks. Next, please. So I'm going to ask Randy to talk a little bit about some of the projected conformance testing that we have at Plugfest. Again, we haven't finalized the test plan because we're still getting test systems that are looking to come and participate in some way. And so we may actually add to this over time, but this is what we think we have right now. Mr. Roebuck, could you just say a few quick words here?
Yeah, these are the projected test systems. Iteris has been qualified to OmniAir, and glad they're coming. Oh, you like me to start a video? Okay.
No, you don't have to. It's fine.
Okay.
There we go.
You can see all my gray hair. Keysight is bringing their test system. They are updating it to 4.12 to address a few items in J3161 at this time, and there will be Sniffer, Spirent, who had been a constant participant for a while, but they have updated their equipment, bringing new equipment, and they're coming back for about the first time in 2 years. So that is wonderful to hear. And need to go through that. Wades is bringing their OBU performance tool, which makes great use of the Suntrax facility, and they'll also possibly bring their bench congestion control system also. Look forward to seeing our DECRA and TTI test labs, where they'll be doing running some of the equipment, Spirent, Keysight, and also bringing 1218 tools with them. Love to have Patrick with his 1218 tool to be there too. So love to add on to the test stations here. Have all the SAMS providers, and you'll see a presentation later on the virtual 1609.2 testing that we've been doing the last 2 weeks, which is deemed a success in finding some items that needed to be adjusted before PlugFest. I look forward to seeing the Stoll Cave in the Box. In our PlugFest evaluation or readiness, we do more than what's typical straight up conformance. We actually work so-called up-and-coming items. We're looking to see if we can do identity search for the first time in OBUs and see how they behave. Our certificates do include a trial operating org ID, and when the security team started looking at that, it looked more involved than really they thought. So it's time to do some trial runs at PlugFest. Get a couple items on T2 and the CR limit to address. So we'll be doing that. Also, you'll see a presentation from Cecil Tech here later. They have a tool that goes through the 10 mandatory test cases plus the other 50 test cases lifting in the spec. We want to use this with all the providers and make sure they're all getting so-called the same responses and answers so we can actually qualify that tool. It appears that one of our members wants to bring the SIMS and intersection validation tool to PlugFest. We're looking forward to that if that can happen, which is used in the connected intersection verification step. Of course, we're always looking to do device interoperability leading into USDOT system level interoperability the following week. And congestion control just came onto the radar here after about 15 years, and COC developing a test case. We're looking to do congestion control, Keysight, and Wades. Next.
Thank you, Randy. Next slide. And I think I'll just ask you to continue and talk a little bit about the validation testing that we're doing for the day one deployment zone. So FHWA, Georgia DOT, and ITS America came to us and said, if we're deploying V2X devices as part of this deployment zone for the World Congress, we want to make sure devices really work. They don't necessarily have to be fully certified, but we want them to be validated. So we've come up with a test plan. I know it's in 14-day ballot that is that's looking at a cross section of our tests. It'll be very similar to what we did for day one testing at the last PlugFest. But I'll ask Randy to talk just a little bit about what to expect if you're bringing a device and you want to go through that validation and get that certificate of validation at the end of the PlugFest. What does that testing look like, Randy?
Okay, our first set is Georgia kind of gave what they're looking for in their footprint right now. We're definitely doing the radio config, which is from the 2022 standard, is basically without the SLSS allocation bits. They are using production certs there. Doesn't necessarily have to be the CAMP processing. It can be the 1609.21. And in PlugFest, we'll be running some test certs that actually will have the production route in them too, so we can do a good job of validating what comes to PlugFest. The last two items is basically They'd like the devices to meet so-called the basic functionalities of the items we have listed there to go into their live deployment. Next slide. So what the working group did was we went through and chose what we thought one or two key items from each test specification that would give a good cross section of testing. When we start the testing through the week, we want the devices to go through all they can so they get a really good evaluation of where their device stands. And if they haven't passed these particular items, they can go back on Thursday afternoon, Friday morning to make sure that they get a second trial at a couple of these key items here if they didn't pass the first time. We think that gives a pretty good representation. So the device manufacturer needs to have those results, take the results to the Georgia DOT evaluation team, and they can decide to put your device into a live environment scenario. We did take these already approved test cases from all the different specifications, put them into a document called 55C, which we're sending through our working group review as we speak. I saw the notice go out this morning. So by April the 10th, the working group should comment on them and allow this document to make available use for PlugFest participants. Next slide.
So just we will have the run of a portion of Suntrax during the event. Unique this year is very close to entering the guard gate. We will not be in the garage bays, or what they call the working bays. We'll be just behind the security gate in the main building for the AV, sort of the conference center. We'll be there for our conference and for lunch. We'll have that set up throughout PlugFest for technical deep dive presentations, which we're going to do midday each day of the PlugFest. So everything from standards to test tools to things like that. So if you're interested in giving one of those presentations, reach out to Ryan or Randy. And then in the adjacent building, we have a brand new unfinished space. We'll have a picture of it in a minute. With Ethernet hookups and great connectivity and power and ample space, and it's going to work really well for the bench testing. And we just did a site visit last week. It's really fantastic, and I think it's climate controlled, unlike some of the working bays. It should be a little easier on the test systems. Next, please. So you can see a kind of a model configuration. We have a lot of space available. And so each of the squares in the middle represents what will be a test station. We're setting up the tables and benches, and we'll have the wires and everything you need. On Monday, we'll have that ready for setup. We do have space along the walls for those that may wish to have benches that display some marketing materials or talk about a program. We're happy to provide that opportunity for any of the PlugFest participants. We want you to get the most out of it. We expect a lot of shuffling around the room and a lot of productivity here on the test floor. And there'll be some downtime where you can share a little bit about your organization and business. Next, please. And of course, we were messing without a workshop. We did a workshop in 2023 at PlugFest. We had Mr. Capps, who's the CEO and founder of Capps Trafficcom, and we're very excited about that as our keynote. Of course, we had Nicola and PJ from the tolling world, and we believe FTE will be speaking there as well. We'll have some announcements, hopefully by next week, about speakers and panels. We're planning on roughly a half a day of a conference, a couple hours of technology demonstrations right after that, and then a little fun reception in the evening. So Stick around if you are just there for testing during the week. Go to Disney World, go to Busch Gardens, go to the beach, enjoy Florida, and then come back for this workshop on Monday. Next, please. And without further ado, we have our working group updates. Randy, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask you to treat this as a lightning round and run through these working group updates as quickly and efficiently as you can. We want to preserve time for Woody and Meadow to give us, I think, is going to be a fantastic presentation on the virtual SEMS testing and their experiences with that. Next, please. Mr. Roebuck, floor is yours.
Jason mentioned that the board approved 5 documents. There's 3 that's already been approved and done. The 4th one actually completed the 30-day review yesterday, so it's already approved and it can go up on our website. And the last one is the UCAM, which will be a webinar coming up soon. Jason, I see your name. We having problems? Can you hear me? Okay.
There we go. Looks like we're back.
In the VX Technical Working Group, we've had a whole bunch of test tool presentations. Waities presented their test tools, both performance and conformance controls. Spirent presented theirs here this past Tuesday, and Keysight will be presenting on April the 8th. Of course, we've reviewed the ITS World Congress and already showed the test case list. I've started a document called 794, which is congestion control, 2 test systems, Keysight and Waities can test that. We're looking for OBUs to go through that, both option 1 and option 2. The working group did work through an industry item where WSAs are now mandatory for our shoes and conditional for OBUs as an industry consensus. Then this group is looking for network BDAX and software stack test methodology here moving forward in the later part of the year. Cybersecurity, we resolved a CTL and a CCF issue identified during the virtual testing, which is continuing through March 31st, and Cecil Tech will give more details. So it's actually done its job. Next slide. Next slide. The PlugFest technical presentation, we're actually at a weekly cadence between the technical working groups, as on Tuesday every other week versus this one, which is on Thursday. So we'll go back and forth and take care of it once a week. Please continue to send the device capabilities forms. I just got 2 of them in the last hour, so let's have more of them to come. We've already covered that. Connected intersections, RSU group. They're looking at 772 and the 1218 test case updates. We are planning to do the network V2X planning in this working group. So look forward to that. And they had kind of a kickoff launch on J3224 profile for infrastructure sensor sharing, the SDS message. Application testing, they're kind of reviewing the use cases for upcoming PlugFest, what's happening on the test equipment. And the aftermarket safety device, attended a couple of meetings this week already on it. They're changing a few items on there. What their identification bit was going to represent as far as classes. A lot of folks want to change that to the location accuracy of the device to dictate that, and they'll be starting a 28-day ballot here shortly. And I need really some settling before updating our applicable test cadence on that. That won't take very long to do. Next slide. Our certifications policy group, they had a guest speaker this past month, Bobby McCurdy from ITS America, talking about the present federal transportation and VITA-X priorities overview this year. In the tolling group, they just got back from IPTTA Dallas, a technical working group. They had some discussions on the UHF tag requirements, which we're working through the next couple weeks. I did receive some more inputs on updating the 810 environmental document beyond vibration and shock. And their next meeting comes up a week from Monday. And road using charging, they have a presentation coming up on April 2nd, and they held a working group this week on walking through what can we do and what can be applied and moving down that path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randy. Fantastic whirlwind view through a lot of activity. And I would just say that if you're not part of an OmniAir working group, you're not really getting the most out of your membership. That is where the rubber hits the proverbial road. And I would encourage you or your colleagues to get involved. And you can sign up on our website or just drop Berkenda or I a note, and we're happy to get you involved. Speaking of involved members, Meadow Chose, the Global Business Development Director for Tech, and Tech has been a really strong supporter of OmniAir. I know that Tech has been testing as part of our virtual VDX security testing event over the past 2 weeks, along with AutoCrypt and Microsec and Integrity Security Services. And I said, Meadow, could you give us just one slide about the progress so far? And she gave us more than one. So I said, this sounds like you're going to be the featured speaker for this week. So I'm just very excited to have Meadow and Woody and folks to share their experience with virtual testing and some lessons learned and maybe some ideas of where we head for our testing at Plugfest. Ms. Cho, the
Right.
floor is yours.
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hi, everybody. My name is Meadow. This last week and this week we have done this virtual SCMS interoperability test, and we would like to present what we encountered as some issues and as some considerations for the improvement for the features to CTL. Next, please. So this is agenda that we're gonna present. Next, please. So basically, this is the overall idea of our test proposed. We wanted to check if all the devices with the oh, sure, I should have a slide control, right. Okay, so this is a basic diagram that we would like to we wanted to try like all the devices downloaded with the different SCCMS certificates under test CTL that is dealt with SCMS Manager, and we wanted to try if all the all the messages are exchanging to each other under the certificate downloaded from different SCMS providers. And this is a description. So we wanted to do something different from 2 years ago. So with different, two different SCMS providers under IEEE 1609.2.1, we downloaded the certificate, register, enrolled, and authorization certs, and see if we can exchange the SPDU. That's the basic idea. and we conducted the pre-test survey. We collected the URLs and information from all of this SCMS vendors like CCF URL CTL, Composite CRL CTLs, and we brought that to the device vendors and gave them some survey asking the basic information and what kind of devices they have. And we also asked their canonical IDs, public keys, and so on, so that we can start the configuration before the test. So it was very efficient because we could actually set up everything before the real test, exchanging the SPDUs, so that the exchanging process has didn't take long time. And we don't have other providers' results yet. That's why we just have this. Yeah, we just have this result so far as of today. We have done this test with microsec and ISS so far, and with 4 device providers with different OBUs and RSUs, everything was passed. So exchanging the messages downloaded by Text SCMS, OBU, microsec RSU, or vice versa, ISS OBU, our OBU, vice versa, all the same. They were all successful. There were some setbacks and delays since there were some delayed update with the test STL and CCF. However, at the end, it got successful. I will give you some details. So we have encountered some issues regarding this test CTL creation and updates. The electric key has solely by one entity able to create and update the CTL. So when SCM is joined and we need to update the Versia, we have to wait. And it delayed it actually the CTL updates. So we had to wait until it is updated. Otherwise, we couldn't do anything for the interoperability testing. And also, there were some inactive SCMS providers, and that actually hindered the interoperability test because we had to do some unrequired, unnecessary process. Like they have some like errors with the hash code, and we had to figure that out and decode before we go on with our SCMS and our certificate, because the inactive SCMS providers CTL is still still in this test CTL. So when it comes to the list, we still not have this policy. And number 3 is some errors with the distributions. The CTLs are distributed without any validation. So that can also lead to the confusion. Just for the record, we are very open to any discussion, any idea, any feedback. We can be wrong. So if you have any ideas, questions, please feel free to reach out or please ask anytime. So these are the consideration. When it comes to test CTL management, we believe that some industrial consortium like OmniAirs can take this role to operate the test CTL very efficiently to align this interoperability test, because that's the objectives of the whole test. So when it comes to how to operate, is that test CTL can be managed by OmniAir, so the electric keys can be held by OmniAir, and OmniAir members, member companies participating in interoperability test became the electors, and test CTL may be distributed and updated periodically if needed. In specific occasions, definitely can be distributed and updated. And also, we need to ensure the CA certificate validated are validated. And Also, we need to announce the next distribution schedule and deadline. Upon new approval for the inclusion of the test ETL, there must be participation form and electors review and approval. Each SDMS vendor periodically checks and autonomously distributes the published test ETL as well. So that's our consideration that we thought from the issues that we encountered. And the other one regarding CCF CTL is that step by step, starting off, each SCMS sharing their CA certificates in a CCF URL can actually need the automatized management of CCF CTL. So for example, at the moment, there are different entities that starting with CTL series ID was starting with F, and there's some entity has both. There's some entity has a CTL series ID starting with 0348, but we can have, if we have two different channels, it might be easy to manage. And also when we um, share this series ID and update this regularly, we can actually easily merge and easily update all the time regularly, and it will be automatized too. Same as this composite CRL, CTL as well. Bottom line the same, it can simplify the management of two CTLs, one for each SMS providers and the other for test CTL, the whole test CTL. So starting with FF and ending with 0, it will be for SMS providers, and test CTL could be from for 0348 ending with 00. Another proposal is that after having this as virtual SCMS interoperability test, we actually ran into many unexpected issues and we had some time to figure it out, but we doubt it would be very good to have this in-person discussion session to have everybody in one place and discuss and see where we are going and what kind of issues that other SCMS providers, other device providers had encountered, and we can actually see what kind of operation perspective is optimal, and we can reach out to this agreement on test ETL operation by participating as a stakeholder altogether in this discussion session in May OmniAir PlugFest. So that's our proposal. If anyone have any comments, feedback, question, please let us know. This is a contact information for any question, feedback to Woody, our CTO, Whitey, our business development team leader, and myself, Meadow Cho. And yeah, this is it for today's presentation, and thank you so much.
Meadow, thank you so much. I was not expecting such a comprehensive analysis, but I'm so glad that you put the time and effort, you and the entire Sysol Tech team, into this effort. And well, I'm going to encourage folks to ask questions. I see we've got several interested parties on the call. But before I do, I just have a question for myself. So tell me about if we're going to be doing this very similar testing at PlugFest or at other future virtual interoperability tests for the participating vendors. Did you find the vendors were prepared, knew what to do? And do you have advice for vendors that are going to be coming to the test stations at PlugFest to do this testing? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so can I share the screen too?
Yeah, please go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we have some idea for the advanced interoperability test in person. So please allow me some time to share. Right. Okay. If you can all see this diagram. So this is a little bit more advanced than what we've been doing since last week. So if we can add one more SCMS and one more device from the device manufacturers, we can actually did this interoperability test that is more advanced than two SMS vendors. And two devices, two OBUs or two RSUs, doesn't matter. So this one has to be reflected to PlugFest or as USDOT interoperability test because after reading the report from last year's interoperability test in Wyoming, I figured that it would be really great if we can mature the SCMS part in USDOT interoperability test too.
Wow, that's a great idea. That is fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm sure
Mhm.
that's going to spark some great discussion.
Thank you.
Just invite folks to ask questions, raise your hand, drop it in the chat box. I think I see Martin ISO here from Microsec, and I know that you were doing some interoperability tests. And I saw also see Peter Lorenzi. Do you guys have any feedback on
Yeah,
on the interoperability sessions?
yeah, we did actually. We, you know, one of the, you have seen also on Meadow's slides that we were one of the SKMS providers who were doing common tests with ISS and also with CSOLTech, with device manufacturers. So yeah, we were successful with these tests. And on the face-to-face, we definitely would like to do some, maybe with multiple device vendors, not only with multiple SCMS managers, but also multiple device vendors. We can do tests with the face-to-face meeting. So yeah, that would be a big step and a real use case for
I
real
think that
deployment.
that maybe this idea of a sign up, even for those that are signed up for Plugfest and they're going to go through the test stations, maybe we should have a special sign up to make sure that these devices are well prepared to be part of this and we can maybe incubate this idea of this interoperability testing at the Plugfest.
Yeah, that would be good.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, one more idea
Thank
is
you.
that we can also collect the information beforehand if there
Mhm.
are devices that are ready for 1609.2.1 so that we can actually line up the test for that. And then especially as Randy said, we have this test system that is testing for the 1609.2.1 so that we can actually on site to that and test with their device that we're doing now remotely, but if there's some other devices that's on site, we can do that with them and with other SCMS providers with our test systems too.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. And
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome the folks who kind of jumped on late, May From and Laurie Brady and Jonathan Parent may have been here all along. And Jonathan, we're looking forward to going back to Canada and do another wonderful Plugfest up there. And May, we're excited to have you guys as part of our testing event. And Laurie, so excited about your demonstration of VitaX-based tolling at Plugfest. I think it will be a game changer. Okay, well, thank you, Meadow.